Live
All
stream.
right, we live.
Yes,
Well,
yes.
welcome to another Financial Friday,
Oh yeah.
where
Oh
we
yeah.
are rising out of our financial slumps and thriving in financial freedom. I'm your host, Dr. A.D. Burns, and this is my co-host, Brother Minister, Chief Bottle Washer, James Jones. How you doing, Mr. Jones? Sorry,
How you doing, Pastor? It's always good. Yeah, it's good.
how was your week this week?
Oh, this week was hard. And surprisingly, I've had more people call me this week for a lot of work. So it was just fun to get out there, meet a lot of people, say hi, see what their needs are, and see if we can see if a company that I own can help service them. That's always the fun part.
Okay. All right. Well, that's what we do, though. I think
Oh
a lot of times we miss it because we are, just concerned about ourselves. But giving back and making ourselves available is very important.
yeah.
And so you're on the right track. You're on the right track. And so I'm really excited. It's been some major things going on, and we'll talk about them in the future, probably next week, maybe, because we'll have some things done. But I'm setting myself up for the road. I'm rolling
Yes, yes,
six
yes.
figures. I'm setting myself up.
That's the
So,
best. That's the best news.
so James, you know what to do. I'm gonna see if you know what to do. You know what
All
to
right,
do.
let's get into it. Hello, everybody, and good evening to all my grinders. Thank you for coming along. Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, now that's what you do. All the grinders, and so now it's getting ready to be grind time.
Oh yeah.
I just made that up, but it sounds good. It's getting ready to be grind time, and I've connected with so many different people in the financial world that we'll be able to have on doing our road to six figures. Got someone from the bank. I have someone from a major financial institution, and they have some different tidbits. And I really believe if you follow the roadmap and you grind this thing out, that is no reason that you won't be flowing in the six figures. Um, the time is equivalent to your determination, dedication, and your devotion. When I talk about devotion, I'm talking about how much work you put in. And so you can't be on it, a half a day out of a month and think you're going to make a lot of progress. I mean,
Yeah.
you'll make progress, but it's going to be very slow. All right. So we're going to have to, that's what the word grind. Tell them again what the word grind means.
The word grind is to be diligent, be determined, and do the necessary steps to get it done until the end. So that means every single day you're pushing yourself, you're doing what you got to do, you're learning more, you're advancing yourself. So at the end of it, you'll be an expert in what you do because you grinded out all other distractions.
That's it. I'm writing. So for those looking at me, say, what are you looking at?
Oh
And
yeah.
so let's get started for tonight. I'm excited for the next 2 weeks. We've covered quite a bit, and I don't want to do a review, but you can go back and look at some of our videos prior to this. We covered a lot of ground, and doing this 90-day challenge. If you've been applying yourself for each step during the challenge, you should be at a good place right now. You should be at a better place, whether it's better financially, whether it's better with your understanding of it, or whether it's better with the actual manifestation of the things that you've been doing. And so I've talked to a couple of people who was excited about some of their stocks is making money. They were very excited about it. And I talked to one person who was excited about it and said that they stock only made $50 or something like that. And I told them, well, if you take that 50 and you times that however you register, so if that's $50 a week and you times it times 52 weeks. That's a nice little piece of change.
Yeah.
And so, as James always say, baby steps, and baby steps. James, what you think about that?
Man, that's great news. If I made $50 additional, just the math behind that is so crazy. Because if you take $50, right, whatever you made to make the $50, so let's say you take 500 to make 50. If you remember last week when we was talking about compounding interest, think about it. Instead of making 500 and then making $50 next week, the very next week you're gonna put that $50 back into what you got. So now you're making upwards around $60. And then what's gonna happen in the week after that? You're gonna take that 550, put 60 on that. Now you got 600. Now you got $610 in the bank. You bringing back another $61. So at the end of the year, you did that 52 times. Oh, it's golden.
And that's something a small amount as $50. And I forgot about that part, James, as far as the compounding, because I was doing 50 times 52, but that's not the right math. It's 50, and then the next time it'll be 100. Because if you use the same formula and you create another 50 on the side, like you said, what you use to get that 50, if you create another 50 on the side, that's 2 50s. That's 100. Yeah. And then now you got 100 going in, and then that's 150. Then that's 200. And so that's big right there.
Yeah, and those be the small things that people be doing.
Yeah.
And if you just let it sit, you'll be like, man, how am I making it? Yeah. Well, it's because your money is compounding. It's not just standing still. Your money is assigned, is doing what it's supposed to do. Your money is making money.
Yeah.
And once you get into that rhythm and you be like, man, I'm still making money. Yeah. Because even your money has a threshold where it doesn't need you to put in any more money because your money is automatically accumulating enough. So yeah, that's the point to get to.
And so I said that to say that as we get ready to get on this road, it's going to be important for you not to get discouraged. The Bible said, "Don't despise the day of small beginnings." Don't get discouraged. It's baby steps. Yeah. And even if it's $2 compounded a week times 52, that's a nice little piece of money. All right. Yeah. And so one stream right there. You got that stream, you got your job or whatever your mainstream is, and you got room to create another stream. You could take that $50 as it's rolling over, and then you could break off some of that and do another lane with maybe some CDs.
I was just about to say
that. Yeah. Come on, talk to me.
I was just about to say that because if you notice, every time we're talking, everything has a limit. So when your savings get to a certain limit, guess what? Take that money off and start putting it into other ventures. And I say ventures because when I say investment, some people think that, I'm going to lose it. And some people are very pessimistic, but it's not. It's just an adventure. Yeah. Me doing real estate is just an adventure. Why? Because it's the journey. It is not the destination. The journey is that we are having a good adventure.
Yeah.
So you're taking your money, you're putting your emergency funds there. Once you got your safety net, guess what? Everything else you're making is just part of your adventure.
Right.
How much money can I put towards my bills? How much money can I put towards getting myself out of debt? Yeah. How much money can I put down so I can buy another property? How much money can I put down so I can go eat a good meal?
Yeah.
And once you start looking at it as an adventure, because remember, the adventure is over when you die.
Mm-hmm.
The adventure isn't over because you hit hard times. The adventure isn't over because you now in the lap of luxury. Your adventure isn't over.
Yeah.
So everything is part of the adventure. I think I was talking to somebody recently, like real recently, and he was like, man, I got this tenant and this tenant isn't listening and the tenant don't. I'm like, hey, don't even worry about it. The tenant could just be a misunderstanding. Remember, this is an adventure for me and you. We supposed to be doing this until the day we die. And until we educate people and train people on what it is to make money and to be good tenants, it's just an adventure.
Yeah.
And when you look at it as an adventure, right? No one reads the book, get 1/3 in and be like, oh, I know what's going to happen and close the book.
Yeah.
What's the point in reading? No, let's get to the end of the book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I see.
My adventure is, my adventure is going to end. My adventure is going to end with a bunch of people knowing how to be financially literate, a lot of people making it. My adventure's going to end when you don't see me no more.
Yeah.
And my kids, and the people who know me, the people who are around me, when they start understanding what that's my adventure. That's the adventure.
All right. But listen, we got a couple of people in the chat. Lady B said, "Hey, I'm back." Minister Effort said it was the law of compound interest. Also, Minister Effort said this about equity farming as well. You know what that is, James?
Nah, I haven't heard that term. But no, I haven't heard that term.
I haven't heard the term. Yeah. I was just having a conversation about that. I'm trying to remember what I learned. When you hear that the explanation of it, you'll say, "Yeah, I know what that is." Yeah. Listen, I'm gonna reach out and then we'll bring that one back up. But let's get started with our lesson for tonight. So we on week number 11.
Yes,
and we got 3 weeks left, I believe, and we're talking about generational wealth and legacy. So we're talking about generational wealth and legacy. And so, James, kick us off on that.
I'll always be able to kick us off. Okay, to all our grinders out there, make sure you got your pencil, pens, notebooks, pads. Get them ready because we're about to talk about legacy. The whole point of everything that we're doing, everything we talk about, is not just about one person. It's about everyone that you will reach. So we're talking about generational wealth and legacy. Now, remember, legacy isn't just money. It's also the mindset. It's also the attitude. It's also understanding the mannerisms of the person in which has did what we are doing. So when we move into generational wealth, we want to go into, I think we just, okay, when it goes to generational wealth, the biggest thing, the very first thing we can talk about are these 4 things. These are the focal points for generational wealth: creating a legacy, teaching financial principles to others, setting up future-oriented accounts, and impacting family and community. Now, we'll talk about impacting family community, setting up future-orientated accounts, teaching financial principles, and creating a legacy plan. And we're going to do as many as we can, and then we'll hit the rest of them back when we get back to it.
Okay. All right.
Okay. The very first.
Before we started, let me add in there, Proverbs 13:22 says, "A good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children." And so biblically, God is expecting us to leave an inheritance for our children's children. And leaving an inheritance is not the same thing as leaving a check or an insurance policy. And so let's go ahead, let's get into it, and then we'll break it down. But know that the Bible tells us that that's what a good man does. And so, you may say, "Well, I'm all right. I'm just going to do what I do." But no, you got to think beyond where you are. He says your children's children. So that including the person, that's 3 generations.
Yes.
And so we want to learn how to do it. When we look at the wealthy people in the world, that's how they do it. They have an inheritance and they're able to keep that thing going through generations. When you think about some of your major families, they're probably 5, 6 generations in, and they still living off that the wealth that was established, that established that inheritance from 6, 7 generations back. I wonder if I can Google that to see how many generations of wealth, who got the most generations of wealth. That'll be interesting.
I think while you're doing that, I think it's a senator. I think when you say the generations of wealth, I think you're going to come back with a senator. I think it's a senator that is either a senator, or I believe somebody said every president is attached to some European ruler, like the third, like Edward the Third or something. Okay. So it's crazy how when people apply themselves, bad or good, left or right, how they apply themselves and they put themselves in the best situation, how their kids understand this is how things run.
Yeah.
And like the first one is about creating a legacy plan. because generational wealth isn't just about money. That's why you see a lot of people who join the military. Guess what? It's because somebody in their family previously joined the military. And although the military could have issues, but everything has issues. There's not a I cleaned lint from a laundromat. Guess what? That had issues. But I still have to make my money. The job that people are on when you work for Spectrum or Comcast, if you work for AT&T, I mean, whether you do the lines or you see how inside the houses, every job has politics. Every job has a mindset. My grandfather, I talk about, he worked in a foundry. My other grandfather was a deacon, and the other one before that was a pastor. I mean, like, these are people who live legacy lives.
Wait a minute, hold up, slow down. Slow down. What did you just say? Did you say that who was a deacon and who was a pastor?
So on my father's side, my great grandfather, the two great grandfathers, the one was the deacon, and then came the pastor, or he was the pastor and then came the deacon. So that's on my dad's side. On my mom's side was my grandfather who worked at a foundry, and his big thing was my kids would not do what I do, so I'm gonna sacrifice my body to get things situated, and that's what he did. He worked a job that caused horrible health conditions, but the result was none of his kids worked in the foundry. The result was all the kids pursued higher education. The result was all his kids understood this isn't for us. This is what my dad is doing to provide for us, but this isn't what he wants us to do or to be involved in. And I think those are the sacrifices that sometimes fathers have to make that will go unseen. So I'm not saying that people would know who you are then. It's just people will recognize you more when you leave. And that's the same thing with Martin Luther King. When he was walking around on the earth telling everybody, hey, guess what? Nonviolence is the way to do it. We have to still go for our reparations. We have to still pursue equality in our character and in our being, right? When he was on the earth, he wasn't liked by everybody. He was not celebrated as much as everybody believed he was. He was hated by some. He was ostracized by others. But it wasn't until he died, right? Now he died. And now when people look back, they see the legacy that he left. And now people are, oh yeah, we're gonna name a holiday after him, and he was a really good guy. And some people say, well, I walked with him, and I mean, it's all nice now, but when he was going through the struggles, he didn't have a good crew of people with him.
Yeah.
I mean, and the same thing is true with our Lord and Savior. When he was walking the earth, when everything was fun and easy, everybody was with him. He had 70,000 people. Everybody want to get some piece of bread. Everybody thinking this man is the best ever. He came across some tribulations that he was like, hey, this is how we're going to handle it. What happened? He was by himself, butt naked on a cross, because that's what happened. Everybody left him. Now, what happened 3 days later? What happened 40 days after that? Now he's well celebrated and everybody loves the man. But when you're going through your hard times, you got to be able to walk through your hard times, your valleys, by yourself, if necessary, so you can produce a legacy. So that's what this is all about, producing a legacy, not in the right now moment, but in the future moment that other people can see and then grow from.
I mean, that's good. I mean, that's good to understand, because if we don't understand legacy and how that thing is created and maintained, then we're setting our children up to repeat what we did. If they're struggling trying to get to a place, and then all of a sudden it starts all over again. But if we could begin to educate our children as they see how we accumulate wealth, and educate them so that they are able to keep that going, then they start at a better place, and they're able to use their creative ideas to take it even further.
Yes.
And so that's so important. So let's go ahead and jump in there and
Okay.
See if we can help some people tonight.
Okay. The very first one we're going to be talking about is going to be called creating a legacy. Now, when you look at the picture, it's just what it is. Creating legacy is all about a plan. It's just like many developers, right?
Mhm.
When you create a plan, when you get ready to do something, you don't just do it. You have a plan in place. So you know where things will be. So just like that, when you talk about creating a legacy plan, it's what are you doing on what is your day to day and what is your future attempts? When I say that, I mean we're Christians. So my legacy plan is to make sure my kids know that we're Christians. My legacy plan is to know that this is what we believe in, this is what we don't believe in. Because a legacy isn't about the it's not just about the future, it's about the day-to-day leading towards the future. But also, we also talk about what it is to be financially understanding, what it is to be caring, what it is to be concerned. Because a legacy plan, as it's planned out, is not dealing with just financing, it's also dealing with maturity, a discipline, honor, integrity, and what is it that we believe in. And that's the legacy plan that must be drawn out. So like everything I tell everybody, like everything that I've ever told anybody, write it down, because in case anything happens and you lose your way, you need to read what it takes in order to go to where you need to go. So a legacy plan one is a plan. That's something that you wrote down, not something in your head, something that you wrote down. And when it talks about financial, your legacy plan needs to be well defined. Like, how do you plan on making money? How do you plan on making passive income? How do you plan on ending or stopping your active income? And then on top of that is what happens when you are no longer with us physically? Do you have a 401k? Do you have a death benefits? Do you need a power of attorney? And these are things in which everyone needs to sit down and do. We can't tell you that you have to do it, but these are things that people need to have in place in case things happen in their lives.
Man, so one of the things that you said that was very key is that this is not something that you float around in your head or something that you have wishy-washy do, but it's something that is thought through and then documented. You know,
Yes.
so what is the purpose and importance of documenting it versus I got it in my head or I verbally said it to my children?
Because you yourself changes the words that we use. I myself changes the words that I use. Though those words that I use may be different every time you ask me. But when I put it on paper, let's say I'm gone for 3 months because I'm out doing something. My kids know what is expected of them because they can see it.
Okay.
When I am at home, my kids know what is expected of them because they can see it. When someone is trying to do or perform in your best interest, right? They're taking your ideas and they're trying to do what is in your best interest. How do they know what is in your best interest if you don't tell them? They can't communicate with you, they can't call you, but they can see the sheet of paper and he says that he wants to buy stock in this company. Okay, how does that look? Well, the sheet of paper told you what his intentions was. The sheet of paper told you what we are to do with his money.
Mm-hmm.
Those things, when they're wrote down, allow more people to not argue about your well-being. Some people have a do not resuscitate. Some people say do resuscitate. Well, how do I know if it's not written? Some people have kids that they want to send particular items to. Some people don't. Well, how do we know? It's wrote down. And I'm not even saying in case you die. I'm saying in case somebody doesn't know, because I can be gone for weeks to months at a time. How do anyone know what to do if I don't tell them or write it down? So the easiest way to get things done is to write it down. Because when you write it down, it does two things. It holds you, it holds you. And when I say you, I do mean myself. It holds, when I write something down, it holds me accountable to what I wrote down. So I can't go back and change my mind. So now I'm being held accountable. It also, number two, holds everyone who's listening to you accountable. Because if you, the person who wrote it, can't go back and change their mind, those who's reading it can't go back and say, I have another interpretation. No, this is the interpretation. He wrote it down. He explained it. This is what we ought to do. And that's the best way to get your ideas across. That's the best way to get an understanding across. And that's the best way to maintain an understanding, is by having it written down with everyone having the ability to see what was written.
Okay. All right. No, that's good. That's very plain as well. And that's important that we create these habits of, documenting and writing things down. One of the things that I kind of wish I wouldn't missed out on, one opportunity, was to write down my grandmother's recipes. My grandmother was an excellent cook. She cooked on television. She had a television show she had cooked on. She had a lot of clients she cooked for. We did a lot of different fairs where she would cook. And so she was a professional cook or self-taught, or whatever. She wasn't she didn't go to school for it, but all of those recipes, all of those dishes. Now, she did give me one recipe that I asked for, and that was macaroni and cheese. And most of the time, anytime they want some macaroni and cheese, they would ask me to make it. And so lately, my other sister asked for the recipe, and I gave it to her. So now, she thinks she can outmake it. Outmake me on it. But the point that I'm saying, that a lot of things in our generations we don't document, and they over time they get lost. And generations grow up, they get, they don't know about certain things. Just like, and we don't want to get into the whole idea of estate planning, but there's another area though where we need to be clear on what we want to happen, once our time is up on this earth. Not just have a will, but have a trust where things could be allocated, so that it can ensure that it can go generational, depends on how much you have in there. And so that's so important. Lady B said, that's good. Writing it down holds me accountable. So she got that. Yeah. So that's important for us as a people. It's important for all people, all races. Is definitely, I'm trying not to separate people in the race category, but our race do have some challenges in the area of generational wealth.
Yeah. But just in case anybody is taking notes, like note taking, right? There's a bunch of information out there that says, a bunch of statistics that people can go look at, that says if you just take notes, you're 30 to 40% more likely to remember it. Just by writing it down, you're more likely to remember it. There's a bunch of statistics out there that says if you can write it down, you're more than likely to remember it and to be able to recall it. There's a bunch of information out there that says if you were to pass away and people wouldn't argue because you wrote down what is called a will. Hey, guess what? I want my nice shiny 1982 Delta 88 to go to my godson. I want my artistry set to go to my goddaughter. My two daughters, they got their own company to go to, and you wrote it down, right? It's a lot easier for them not to be able to argue, because when you was alive, you stated where you want everything to go.
Mm-hmm.
The same is true when you talk about households. Hey guys, guess what? Your room needs to be clean on this day. This is what it's going to cost.
Mm-hmm.
This is what it's going to do. These are the bills I pay, and you are pushing towards them to have clarification. I mean, I got a job right now, and all I do is take notes. And when I get done talking and we take notes, I tell them, I'm going to send you an email with what we just talked about. Not to put you on blast, but I want to make sure we're communicating at the right frequency.
Okay.
And when people say, well, what that mean? Well, I just want to make sure what I wrote down is what you said.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I talk, there's a lot of communicational noise. It's the way you perceive it. It's the way you bring it in and the way you speak it back. But if we write it down in an email, we talk, I took notes, I wrote it in an email and I said, hey, is this correct?
Mm-hmm.
And I try to list facts. You will do this, I will do this. These things will be handled, right? And we write those things down. These are the policies that are governing what we're doing. These are my recommendations. And then I email it to the person. Typically, the person is looking at it like, okay, it looks like that's what we're going to do. That's what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And the benefit is now we're both accountable. Now, no one can say, I didn't know. I forgot. Now, you can say, I forgot, but you can't say you didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know what you are slotted to do. I know what I'm slotted to do. And we can hold each other accountable because we wrote it down.
Okay.
And sometimes, even in contracts,
Mm-hmm.
a contract sometimes is written a certain way for lawyers and it's not written towards laymen. So sometimes you got to have a summary. Hey guys, I know this stuff is written for lawyers, but the basic rule, the basics of this contract is that I'm going to be your distributor. You're going to be the artist. You're going to get this amount. I'm going to get this amount, and we will have a good day.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's where summaries come in. But they still have the long form contract, and then they have the summary on the back form that breaks down what everything is. Because when we can communicate and we can understand and we have an understanding, we can move faster and we have a lot less confusion.
Okay. That's good. Generational wealth and legacy is about long-term vision, but it's also about long-term impact. And in order for it to have impact, it has to what is left or what you have to be used in the intention of what you want to happen with it. You know, so there has to be an intentionality there. You know, I'm putting this money aside because this is what I wanted to do. And then when I'm gone, when my family access this money, the summary of what they were doing with this money is here. So then I'm able to take off where pick up where they left off and continue it going. And then we keep passing that down. And there's no way that you can run water through a pipe without the pipe getting wet.
Yeah.
And so what that means is there's no way you'll begin to handle 8 and 9 figures in a generational pot and not be blessed yourself. You know what I mean? So because most people what they think of doing, I've heard this happen, I've done a lot of funerals over the 31 years of pastoring, and actually more than I thought I could handle, emotionally and all of that, because, oh my goodness, but the one thing that never surprises me is how families split up, argue, and fight over what is left because there was no instructions. I had a situation where the mother died and the mother's siblings came into the house, and the mother died, left three children, and the mother's siblings, which would be uncles and aunts, came into the house, took the car, took things out of the house, and said, my sister would want me to have this. And with no regards to the children that was left. I've seen some ugly things happen at funerals. And so it's so important that we realize that one day we are going to die, and we don't know what that time is going to be. And so to ensure not just hope that everybody gonna be all right, but to ensure that what you started can keep going. You have to take time and balance your life so that you have time to write and sit down and think things through. A lot of times we just don't have time. You know, my wife just texted me. I'm put her on blast. She just texted me. She's watching, and she said pretty much, when we gonna sit down and write this out. You know what I mean? so you know, I guess in the next week or so, we're gonna be writing out our legacy plan. But yes, that's so important. Let's keep going. We're halfway through our
okay.
Time, and we want to share a little more with you on the whole idea of generational wealth and legacy.
Okay, so on top of teaching, on top of creating a legacy plan, now it comes teaching financial principles to others. And the reason why there's an equation up there is because, like many things, there's an equation in which we all need to understand. The equation for generational is where I start, somebody else will complete. Where they start, somebody else will complete. Where they stop, somebody else will complete. And that's how generational wealth works. Now, it could be you start off at a paper mill, they ended at a printer site. Somebody else came after them and said, okay, cool, you ended at a printer. Cool, we now do Xerox. We're a whole company, right? And then you were like, well, how'd you get from point A to point B? It's easy because we built on top of each other. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. So even whether you do or don't like politics, our current president, his father was a real estate developer.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? His son had a bunch of businesses in real estate. That's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether you like the politics or you don't like the politics, the fact of the matter is, when you are wealthy and you're educating those behind you and you're teaching them financial principles, those who catch it will catch it and they will grow off what you have put down.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's important not just to write it down, but to hold yourself accountable.
Mm-hmm.
And then by teaching financial principles to your children or to those around you, because that's the goal. The goal of this right here, this program right here, the programs that are similar to it, the goal is the same, is to teach financial principles to everybody. Just like I said with compounding interest, if you didn't know about compound interest, now you do. So now you can utilize that information to grow your money faster.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't know, now you know why your debt, while you may have credit cards, and why even though you're paying $200 to $300, your credit card is still around the same balance. It's because the interest is compounding on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
So it works in your favor and it works against you. But if you know these financial principles, right, if you know them, then you can teach that to your children so they won't be in the same rut that you're in, or they won't be in the same situation you're in. And then they will start where you are and they will build on top of that and say, I know my dad told me not to get a car with a 25% interest.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. That person may get a car for 15% interest. And they're going to be like, son, don't get no car for no 15% interest. Cool. I know because my mama told me not to get a car for a 15% interest. So now I'm going to get a car for a 5% interest. And that's how knowledge works. And eventually, right, it could be one generation. It could be that you here, you teach your kids, get a car interest rate for 3%. And that's what they go off of, right? Then they're going to have a kid and their kid will be like 3% is the limit. Cool, right? And everybody's at 3%. Now, I understand how the times are. I understand how history has treated some of us, not all of us, but some of us. So I can only tell you, you have to start where you are by writing things down and then teaching your kids what you wrote, holding yourself accountable to hold your kids accountable.
Mm-hmm.
You can start building from where you are.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that is important for us to do. I wish I would have done this, but I didn't know to do this, and that was to teach my children. You know,
Yeah.
there's financial literacy that I wish I could have taught my children coming up. And then I think about, I have shared with my sons the idea of when their child wants something, like say they want a bike, that, you teach them, okay, make your bed up every day. I'm gonna give you, $1 a day,
Yeah.
and clean up this. I'll give you $1. So here your salary is going to be $5 a week or whatever. And the bike costs $25. So then you're going to take you 5 weeks to get the bike.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And teach them how to process things like that, how to save up to get something, and start educating them on how money works. You understand what I mean? Yeah. And so I didn't have that, and so if you're listening, it's so important that we pass it on, not just instructions and vision, that we pass on information, education. It is all of our right to be financially literate, educated financially, and that changes the whole game, because the average person probably wastes so much money. I mean, it'd be, if somebody was able to help you calculate how much money you waste, by buying things you don't need, or buying things before it's time to buy them, or different things like that, you will be amazed how much money comes to your hand. And so we want to teach our little ones. We want to teach them. We want to start. I don't know. I'm sure they got some financial books out there for children.
Yeah.
That you can find, but you want to teach them, because when we go to our school systems teach them how to count, but it doesn't teach them how money works.
Yeah.
And there's been a statistic that says that there's college professors that don't know how to balance a checkbook. They were educated on maybe English, but they still didn't know totally how money worked. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so that's important. We got about 15 minutes. Let's go.
Okay.
Let's see if we can go a little further.
Okay, cool. With the next one, we're going to talk about, let's see, we're still talking about generational wealth. And just to add into that, no one can tell you how far your kid will grow. No one can tell you how far the person you talk to will grow. It's up to them. But if we put them in the right limelight, and if you put them in the right projection, and if you send them to the right area, then you reduce the risk or option that something will fall off. And I just want to stress that enough, because sometimes we just hope for the best, but hoping isn't good enough.
Yeah.
I want my kids to know how to do math. So I'm going to emphasize math projects. I want my kids to know how to count money. So I'm going to emphasize counting money or financial projects. I want my kids to know that God is everything and has everything that they need. So I'm going to emphasize understanding who God is, right?
Yeah.
And these are things that are not random. They're very intentional. So while we move on to the next one, I just want to make sure everybody's taking a note. Those things in which I find important, I'm making sure that they are very intentionally planned in my kids' life.
Okay.
Now, I don't have to be the one doing it. I just wanted to see it done.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, guess what? I want to see that my kids are understanding how money works. I want my kids to understand how to make a dollar and how to transport that dollar. I want my kids to know how the stock market works. I am not a stock market guy, but I want to make sure that my kids understand how the stock market works, because one of them may be interested in the stock market.
Yeah.
They want to lend out money. Hey, guess what? I may not be a money lender, but I want my kids to understand how money lending works, because that's how banks make money. Different banks, different financial institutions make their money, is how the banking industry works. Well, I want my kids to understand that, even if I'm not the one teaching them. So we got to be very intentional about teaching. Teaching is really big for me. So we've got to be very intentional about teaching them.
And as we move on, let me say this. I believe, just based on the interaction that I've had with your children, and just looking at how you interact with them, I praise you and say that you're doing an excellent job with that. They're becoming, you know, when I talk to them, they're financially educated. You know, they understand a lot of different business principles. You know, and so they're going to be very self-sustaining. Whoever their husbands end up being, they're gonna have to bring it. they gonna have to bring it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's gonna be the fun part. But remember, everything is to put them in the best. Because when I was growing up, this is one of them old stories. How many people? How many people? Right, right. You don't gotta say it out loud, but how many people had their parents put bills in their name? Well, but we had to. Well, yeah, I know these are good excuses. But if you don't, right? If you don't, right? If you could maneuver your life that your kids is set up for success, and they're not already put behind the span. Now, my name, I got a very common name, and when I turned 18, well, actually, when I came back from overseas, I took 2 years clearing my name, 2 whole years just to clear my name up. That's more the debt that somebody put me in, the warrants that I didn't even do, the situations that I wasn't even involved in. I wasn't even in the same state as some of these situations. But it took me about 2 years. And when I say 2 years, I went to maybe 20 court dates, 20 court appearances, just to make sure when I turned 21, 22, I was actually cleared. Like I actually had a cleared name. And then my credit score, just because of that, jumped up over the 2 years. My credit score jumped up about 100 points. And that was just that's just clearing up. Like, no, I'm not that guy. I'm not even old enough to be that guy. How can that be my debt? I just hit 18 not too long ago, right? And it just took time because I do have a very common name. So if they can't find somebody, they just put it on anybody.
Right.
And yeah, it takes a lot of time to do that. But when you make everything known, then you can move yourself forward.
Okay. All right.
Okay. The next one is setting up future orientated accounts. Now, this is what we touched on a little bit now, but let's dive into it. I understand, right? I gotta do the understanding first. I understand that some people don't have these things in place. I want to tell you, it's not too late. Okay, you're setting up a future oriented accounts. So if you haven't contributed, contribute to your 401k or your 201k, right? If you are more inclined to passive income, and I say more inclined, not that one is better than the other. If you're more inclined, or you have the a good age to do a lot more investing, you may want to do stocks or bonds. But remember, you're not doing this for the immediate gain. You're doing this for futures. So when you turn 80 and when you turn 90, you will have this money readily available to you. And that's the biggest thing that everybody has to understand, that this is for your future. So whether you have an educational plan, that's the 529. I had to make sure I looked that up. Like, what a 529? Like, I know that's a good one. It's a real good one. So you want to set your kids up for success or your grandkids up for success. That's your educational plan, which is a 529 plan. The emergency fund, which we talk about extensively for like the last 6 months, you gotta have an emergency fund. Too often, when we pass on, that debt is given over to anybody who loves us. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that. If you're living right now and you live for 3 years, if you live for 100 years, if you put $100 away, you want to cushion the impact that it will cost for your family to bury you. Mm-hmm. Even if you're going to be cremated, guess what? It still costs money. Until it stops costing money or until we switch to another system, it will cost money. So as long as that's happening, you want to make sure you put money away so people don't have to do a GoFundMe to a bunch of strangers to try to bury you. Mm-hmm. That stuff needs to be in place. The Trust. I am in favor of trust. Like I am very much in favor of trust, whether vocable or irrevocable. I am very much in favor of a trust. A trust is a trust is one of the better ways to transfer your assets to someone else. And I can't speak on that enough because some people feel, and I say feel like they're in a situation
Hmm.
that they don't have assets. But let me let you know, you do. The watch that you have, that's an asset.
Hmm.
Clothes that you have, those are assets. The car that you have is an asset. The house is an asset, right? These are a lot more things. There are a lot more assets out there than just a house and a car. If you have stocks and bonds, those are assets that can be moved over so they can be taken care of or managed. All of your collectibles or juries, those things could be um, given because jewelry can be appraised, so can watches can be appraised. So all these things can be appraised. They can hold a dollar value, so they can be inside of your trust. So if you if you're not doing multiple passive incomes, you may want to be more interested in a trust. If you are doing if you are doing a lot of passive income, you need a trust. That's the best way to put it. Like it's either mandatory if you're doing it, and it's optional if you're not.
Okay.
So yeah.
So that's very good information, and that's it's a necessity that we open up our minds to be able to wrap our head around the whole idea of planning what happens when we're gone. You know, a lot of us stay away from things like that, but and I know to get a trust is probably going to cost you some money. You know,
Yeah.
to get it legalized, but it's worth that. And if you start educating your children on how to save, the same things you learn in here on Financial Friday, you could take those things and educate your children with those things. And then you continue to do that as you putting away your money into different venues so that they can be able to produce. You know, all of these things work hand in hand. And then when that time does come, your children is not starting from zero. You know, you giving them a great understanding about what's going on, how to do what you're doing. You give them a great understanding about, what to do. Once we leave here, and you set them up to not only succeed but to fulfill Proverbs 13:22. Leaving in it
Yeah.
inheritance for your children's children. And so I think right now a lot of us is our schedules are jam packed with a lot of things, and most of those things is not bringing anything back to us. We're constantly putting out, and you're going to have to get to a place where you pump your brakes and create enough room so that you have time to sit down and write it out. That you have time to sit down, monitor your investments, that you have time to sit down to research the CDs that's available, that you have time to sit down to do some of these wealth building principles so that you can get the results. But if you keep running, and you're going to get to it tomorrow, get to it tomorrow, you're going to look up in 5 years, going to be here. You're going to look up 10 years, going to be here. And so that's so important that we as a people get off this hamster wheel called life, and begin to really think out what it is that we want to happen. And I'm telling you, wealth is not that far away.
Yeah. Oh man, you have no idea how true that is. You have wealth is so easy. I don't know. I shouldn't say it like that. I shouldn't say wealth is easy. Wealth is easy for those who want it and willing to do what it takes. And I'm not talking about jeopardizing your integrity. You can get wealthy off $1,000 additional dollars every single month, and then you grow that into $2,000 every additional month. Because as long as your passive income can cover your monthly expenses, you are wealthy. Now, do that mean you make eight figures? Maybe, maybe not. What it does mean is that you make enough to cover your bills and to have excitement. So I'm telling you, wealth can be achieved in this lifetime. And the funny part is, I often use real estate because people. I mean, that's where my expertise primarily is. So I like teaching financial, but my expertise is in real estate. And somebody once asked me, they said, how many properties you bring in?" I said, it don't matter. What is the total?" And then he told me the total. I said, think of it like this: if you own a duplex that brings in roughly $1,000
Mhm.
passively, right? Once you pay taxes for the year, that's 1 month's rent pays for the taxes. Every other month, I'm making $2,000 a month, and that's one property. If I had two additional $1,000 a month, how many months would it take for me to have all my bills paid? And they said, I never thought about that. I said, that's the reason why. Since the time I started, I've always told people I have two good properties. Why? Because it doesn't take a lot to be considered wealthy. It's just that when people try to keep up with an image and people try to be on the same page or wavelength as somebody that they're assuming is richer than them, then that's how people lose their way. But at the end result, we can all make it. Why? Because if we all can eat, we all can have fun, and we all do our due diligence in making sure our finances are taken care of, the money will flow. Because
Yeah.
as the money flows through your hands, ooh, they gonna get wet.
Mhm. Yeah.
Wet is what we going for. Oh yeah.
Right. Well, listen, we got about 3 minutes left. We've covered a lot when it comes to generational wealth, and we
Yeah.
got one more week to look into legacy and some of those things. And I pray that you don't allow yourself to get overwhelmed. They say do it like you eat fish. You eat the meat and throw out the bones.
Yeah.
So the things that you can understand, grasp those things and write them down. You know, uh, grasp them and write them down. The things that you don't understand, you can always go back and play the Financial Friday again and write down some notes of questions you could ask us on that last week. We're going to be taking questions and answers and, gearing up for the beginning of the road to six figures. And so write down you some questions and so that you can get clarity on what we're doing so that you can be able to walk in this. Let me read this quote and then we'll be ready to close. It says, someone is sitting in a shady tree today because someone planted a tree a long time ago. That's Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
So you could be that person who planted a tree today that will provide shade for decades to come. All right, James, closing comments.
You can do it. Take notes. The biggest things to take away is one, write it down. The Bible tells you, write your vision, make it plain. I'm telling you, write down what you want your family to do. What is your family going to accomplish? Are they going to be good, great helpers? Are they going to be financially fit? Are they going to be financially savvy? Are they going to be spiritually healthy? Right? They could be all of these things, but you got to write it down and have a plan to achieve what you want. And remember, like all things, you don't have to drown. You got to take small adjustments and you will achieve your goal in due season. Happy adventure to all my grinders. I'm telling you.
And see your goals. And
Oh,
so,
yeah.
listen, I pray you've been blessed by another Financial Friday. We are so excited. Can't wait to start hearing the testimonies of those who rise to the six-figure level. And so we ask that you would tune in with us again on next week as we continue talking about generational wealth, and we'll talk a little bit about legacy. And so we pray that we have whet your appetite for the six figures because it's coming. We got a couple more weeks, and we'll be ready for the kickoff. So listen, I'm Dr. A.D. Burns. Be determined, be dedicated, and be devoted, and walk into financial freedom. God bless. We out. Peace.